Hello and welcome, all friends and devotees of yoga and Buddhism. Today is June the 23rd, 2019. It's Sunday today. Um, Folks, I'm just going to continue with my discoveries of these wonderful treasures. I call them the golden treasures of wisdom. They were really wonderful treasures of wisdom which I discovered after decades of research into a lot of philosophies, and I found some fantastic, wonderful collection of wisdom with the great Master Xingyun. Master Xingyun is a is of Chinese origins, Chinese great master. He was the one that founded the Fo Guangshang Buddhist Foundation, which is I think it's the largest Chinese Buddhist organization in the world today. They've been all over the world building all kinds of mighty temples, universities, really encouraging humanistic Buddhism all over the world. Master Xingyun has championed that great project and great, very saintly work he has done. Um, uh, in Africa, for instance, in South Africa, he was able to establish the first Buddhist foundation in Johannesburg, South Africa. It's a mighty foundation, tremendously mighty foundation. The Nanhua organization, Nanhua Temple, and African Buddhist Seminary, they're doing fantastic work, teaching Africans Buddhism for the first time in history. Now in United States of America, the Fo Guangshang also started the University of the West in Rosemead, California. I've been there, as well as the greatest Buddhist foundation in North America, which is the Silai. I've been there also. Silai Temple and organization is in Hacienda, Los Angeles. These are great works Master Xingyun has done. Besides universities, he's built all over the world, and institutions of higher learning, temples. Very great work. Very, very great work. And so my feeling, I really felt so much joy when I found these fantastic treasures. I call them the golden treasures of wisdom, which I discovered. And I had that feeling that Mr. Carter really had. I always keep saying that fantastic feeling. When you really run into something, you've been doing some fantastic research for some years, working hard, and then you finally run into some discoveries. It's just incredible what you feel. It's very difficult to describe it, but I can describe it as the feeling that this great archaeologist, Mr. Howard Carter, must have felt when he ran into gold in Egypt. One day, just gold everywhere, because an ancient king of Egypt, Tutankhamun, was embalmed in gold, and Mr. Carter discovered that. One day they were just excavating, they were just going around doing research, and they ran into this golden tomb where Tutankhamun was preserved in. This ancient Egyptian king was preserved. Fantastic discovery. And that's how it happens. I ran into a collection here, wisdom collection of about 380 resources of wisdom, 380 pieces of literature. Fantastic. It's still yet to be really systematized. I ran into them, I looked at them, I studied them. These are fantastic, wonderful works of wisdom. Let me read you a sample of what I'm talking about here. It is better to help ourselves than to seek assistance from others. It is better to help ourselves than to seek assistance from others. According to a saying, it is better to be the Bodhisattva, Guan Yin, than to recite or plead with Guan Yin. Therefore, we need to be self-reliant. We have to establish ourselves before we can support others. The following are 4 steps to establishing ourselves. 1, write down, students, write down. I need smart students to write these things down. Take note, write these things down so that you can remember them later when you practice your meditation. We need more self-reflection before we can be self-awakened. Socrates once said, Socrates is just like Aristotle. These were great philosophers, Greek philosophers, about the greatest. Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. Socrates, Master Singyun writes, Socrates once said, an unexamined life is not worth living. An unexamined life is not worth living. The Chinese philosopher Zhengzi also said, we must reflect upon ourselves 3 times a day. We must reflect upon ourselves 3 times a day. After self-reflection and examination, we will be able to see our minds, actions, and personality. We will see all our shortcomings, such as a very bad temper, excessive greed, and jealousy. Therefore, self-reflection helps us discover our weaknesses and face our conscience, leading to our self-awakening. Okay, 2, we need to be self-awakened before we can be self-confident. Once we have self-awareness, we will be able to correct our unwholesome habits. For instance, we can transform greed into joyful giving. We can transform greed into joyful giving, anger into compassion, laziness into diligence, and ignorance and wrong views into rationality and right views. After we have corrected our behaviors and thoughts, we can improve our human relationships, making connections with others, even though we may not have had so many friends before. If we have the strength to take on duties, we will gain a strong sense of responsibility and be able to shoulder more. In addition, when we are handling more responsibilities, we naturally gain self-confidence. Therefore, with self-awakening, we will also gain self-confidence. With self-awakening, we will also gain self-confidence. 3, we need to be self-confident before we can be self-reliant. These are the golden keys from the great Master Singyun. We need to be self-confident before we can be self-reliant. Self-confidence defines the goals and ideals in life. When we have self-confidence, we can choose on our life's direction. We will be able to plan our future and be in charge of our fate, enabling us to become our own masters. If we are able to fortify ourselves constantly, we will have confidence naturally and be able to apply ourselves fully in whatever we do. Thus, our chance to succeed will be very high. Our chance to succeed will be very high. On the contrary, if we lack self-respect and confidence, our life will spiral downwards. Our life will spiral downward. 4, the 4th golden key now from the great master. Take note of these things quickly. We need to be self-reliant before we can establish ourselves. In life, we should strive to be self-reliant. We should strive to be self-reliant. According to the saying, as heaven and earth revolve, the wise should strengthen themselves without ceasing. Moreover, generals and ministers do not come from any one class. All men should fortify themselves. All men should fortify themselves. People who strive and work hard on their own will be able to establish themselves. People who strive and work hard on their own will be able to establish themselves. When we are able to strengthen and establish ourselves, we will live a complete and healthy life. Okay. Doing great writing, you need to. That's called being intellectuals, being intelligent people. Okay, you should be able to exercise your brain all the time. So what we're going to do now is to summarize. Okay, we're going to join Master Sing Yung in taking note of the summary of this body of wisdom. In order for us to find our place in the world, we must have self-control. In order for us to find our place in the world, we must have self-control. We must possess ourselves. We must possess self-control. Establish ourselves and gain self-reliance. Establish ourselves and gain self-reliance. Relying on ourselves is the surest way in life. Relying on ourselves is the surest way in life. Folks, it's easy, right? Wisdom is easy, but we just need to pay attention to close details. Highlight these things so that when you go back to your greater self, sit, zazen as the Japanese call it. You sit, just sitting. You sit in your private library, your temple of peace, peace of mind, where you enjoy your peace of mind. You sit in your reflection. You can deeply and profoundly meditate and contemplate all of these treasures of wisdom. Namo Amitofo.